LISS is boring, man. We all know we're supposed to do cardio. However, as lifters, many of us find the thought of low intensity, steady state cardio, to be tantamount to torture. Because that shit is just boring, man. There's a reason why you chose the barbell instead of the treadmill. And I get it, because I'm just like you. The good news is there are several different energy systems in the body. And as such, there are many different means at our disposal in order to improve our levels of general conditioning. Yes, you should do something involving movement that makes you breathe heavy. I do talk about this concept all the time on my channel. But it does not have to be what people traditionally think of as cardio. And with that, it certainly does not have to be boring. Now, LISS is both time-consuming and inefficient by nature, right? And the better you get at it, the more time-consuming that it becomes, and actually the more inefficient that it becomes as well. As you become adapted to the modality, the inefficiency level increases. Now, are there unique benefits to keeping the heart rate slightly elevated or moderately elevated for an extended period of time? Yes, almost certainly. But there are other ways to get the heart rate up besides jogging or rowing or using an elliptical or whatever that it is. And I would argue that we can acquire the vast majority of those cardiovascular benefits by using interval-based methods with incomplete recoveries in between bouts. These interval methods are not only much more fun and much more time efficient, but they are also much more engaging for somebody with the temperament of a lifter. They can also be tweaked to accommodate varying durations and multiple different intensity levels as well. So you can push hard for a short period of time, rest briefly, and then go again, or you can push moderately for a moderate period of time, lower that intensity level for a brief period of time, and then push moderately again, right? Either way, you elevate the heart rate for a good chunk of time while also seeing spikes when you're pushing harder, right? Further, and perhaps more importantly, with these methods, you get a short-term goal to accomplish with each and every set that you do, along with a change in stimulus. This change in stimulus keeps things interesting and exciting while you're actually doing the work. And if you're anything like me, if you have the temperament of a lifter, this is what is going to keep you coming back again and again to actually do your conditioning work consistently. Because that LISS cardio is just so mind-numbingly boring that you'd probably rather drive nails through your eyes than fucking go out there and do a session of it. Now, we've all heard of traditional HIIT cardio, right? That is high intensity interval training. We know about these protocols. This is where you kind of go all out, right? Whatever the modality, sprinting, swimming, cycling, whatever it is, whatever your choice of that is, you do that for a short period of time. You go all out, you sprint, generally for 10 to 30 seconds at a time, right? Then you decrease the intensity level down to something that's more maintainable in order to allow you to recover partially. And you usually, so if you were sprinting, now you would walk, or maybe you would jog slowly, jog at a low intensity. Usually, you rest, you recover for about 30 to 60 seconds in a typical HIIT protocol, and then you go all out again. You sprint again. And this protocol is repeated for anywhere from 5 to 10 rounds, right? Just traditionally, typically. Now, these methods, these HIIT methods, are great for creating a conditioning training effect in a very short period of time. They're very time efficient. In terms of energy systems, they lean towards the phosphagen and glycolytic systems. Now, in recent history, I have also started tinkering with the idea of what I call MIIT. So I will call that moderate intensity interval training rather than high intensity interval training. So for this, I decrease the intensity of the primary bouts to something that's sustainable for periods of time ranging from anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes per bout, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish, rather than the 10 to 30 seconds per bout that you would see in a typical HIIT protocol. After each 1 to 5 minute bout, I rest briefly, and then I go again. So using a protocol like this, you would perform less total rounds than in a HIIT protocol because each round is much longer, and the protocol in totality is going to take a little bit longer to complete on average, again, compared to a traditional HIIT protocol. But by making these tweaks, you slide up that energy systems continuum over into more glycolysis now, as well as actually tapping into the oxidative system, which is what you would get from a LISS protocol, right? A low intensity protocol, while moving a bit away from the phosphagen system, that high intensity protocol that you get with sprint type work. So it gives you more range in terms of the energy systems worked by your training, and the MIIT protocols do, the moderate intensity protocols do, and you still get that short-term goal to shoot for, plus that frequent stimulus change, those things that keep us as lifters engaged, as lifters with our squirrel-like attention spans engaged, right? Now, I've experimented with these MIIT protocols so far. I've used repeat 400-meter runs, repeat 800-meter runs, and even repeat 1,200 and 1,600-meter runs, as well as with loaded carry variation. And what I want to focus on here for the remainder of this video is primarily that latter aspect, the loaded carry plus MIIT concept. So you combine these two things. This is what I call strength-based conditioning, i.e., cardio for lifters. In the past, I've talked about a similar concept of using loaded carries specifically for conditioning purposes, but back then, I was leaning more heavily on the HIIT concept, the high intensity concept, rather than the MIIT concept, the moderate intensity concept. So by leaning on those HIIT protocols, you can use heavier weights and you use shorter carry distances. And it's a great protocol. I still stand by it. I still use it. But with that, it ends up being a blend of conditioning and strength, right? But still leaning more heavily on the strength aspect. Now, by lowering the intensities, extending the carry distances, we amend that ratio to lean more heavily on the conditioning aspect, right? So in recent history, with these protocols, I've done things such as 4 by 400 meter carries using a 120 pound sandbag. So carrying 120 pounds without putting it down for 400 meters consecutively. That is one round, right? Another thing I've done is I'll do something like 3-minute rounds, just for example, on a Stairmaster while holding a 60-pound dumbbell or a 70-pound dumbbell or 80-pound dumbbell or whatever it is. And then I will adjust the intensity intra-round as needed. So I don't put the weight down, but I adjust the speed on the Stairmaster, right? Another thing I've started doing is just 5-minute rounds of casual walking while holding a light dumbbell or wearing a weight vest. One that I really like, I've started doing 10 by 100 meter farmers walks where I complete the whole protocol as fast as possible. So those carries for that protocol are a little bit shorter, but I can keep things in the intensity level that I need by walking as slowly or as quickly as I need to, and by resting as long or as little as I need to. And these are all variations of that same loaded carry plus MIIT concept, and each one is slightly different, right? They allow you to tinker with different intensity levels, different levels of external loading, as well as different paces that you're actually moving at in order to emphasize different sorts of aspects. And there are many different types of loaded carries, multiple different modalities at your disposal, as well as different types of holds, right? Different ways to hold things. So in totality, this makes for pretty much an endless array of options available at your disposal, right? And it also ensures that pretty much anybody with access to any level of equipment can rig up some kind of method, some kind of protocol that works for them. So if space is limited, you could use the treadmill or the Stairmaster, right? You just need some dumbbells or a weight vest to load yourself up with. If space isn't limited, then you can use pretty much any modality that you have available. So now you can use barbells, dumbbells, weight vests, the trap bar, a sandbag, a yoke, a sled, etc., etc. The primary variations that I tend to stick with for the purposes of conditioning are Zercher carries, which I can do that with a barbell, I can do that with a sandbag, works very well. Traditional farmer's walks or trap bar carries, dumbbell carries, which I can either hold at my sides or you can even bear hug or hold as like a goblet. Sandbag carries in all different types of ways, yoke carries, walking with a weight vest, as well as sled pushing, sled pulling, whatever. And what you'll kind of notice about all the options I just mentioned is that they're all pretty stable, right? They give you a good base of support while you're walking, which allows you to carry moderately heavy weights for long total distances. And that's what really allows you to challenge both the lungs and the cardiovascular system, right? There are other fantastic loaded carry variations that exist as well, such as front rack carries, overhead carries, waiter carries, suitcase carries, all of which I love. But all of those options kind of challenge stability aspects to a much greater extent than the options that I listed previously, which makes pushing them to the limit for for conditioning purposes a little bit less of a practical concept. Now, as far as practical recommendations go, I don't really have any, man. My best advice to you is to just experiment with a few different loading means and protocols. Find a few different ones that you enjoy and then rotate through them and push them up slowly month by month. Not day by day, not week by week, but month by month, right? Take your time. There's really no rush here. You can increase the load that you use while trying to maintain your distance and your pace. You can keep the load the same while trying to decrease the rest periods in between rounds. You can increase the duration of each round or the distance carried per round. You can also tinker with the pace directly to a certain extent, but don't mess with that aspect too much. You don't want to push yourself into a corner by trying to speed up each round too much, right? Because at the end of the day, a loaded carry is really a slow to moderate or brisk walk, right? It's not a run or a jog, and you don't want to try to move too fast while under load, so you only have so much wiggle room to play with in terms of the actual pacing. The main guideline here really is that you want to be spending more time working than resting. So if you choose to work for about a minute at a time, then the rest between rounds should be roughly half that, right? And when I say rest, I don't mean to sit on your ass. I mean remove the external loading that you're using for the moderate intensity sets, the moderate intensity rounds, and then pace around, right? Walk in circles, whatever, but never stop moving. Now, if you choose to work for 3 minutes at a time, then the rest should probably be roughly 1/3 of that. If you choose to work for 5 minutes at a time, then the rest should be more like 20 to 40% of that. And please remember, these are just rough guidelines, right? Rough guidelines based on what I have found to work well with each particular method. They allow me to use adequate loading for each of my different protocols and to move briskly while I'm working, while also recovering sufficiently between rounds in order to allow me to go again at a high level. Your mileage may vary here, right? You may find that more or less rest in between rounds actually works better for you to start with. But either way, adjust it to yourself and then progress from there over time. And the same with the loading. Your current levels of strength, conditioning, and work capacity will dictate how much weight that you can use to start with on any particular protocol. And this is going to need to be adjusted on an individual basis. But once you have found some numbers and some protocols that work well for you, then you can really start to push things hard, and that's going to allow you to make great improvements in your general level of conditioning. And from there, the possibilities within this framework that I've outlined in this video are really pretty much endless. So that's going to keep the progress wheel churning, and it's going to keep your training fun and exciting for the foreseeable future. Anyway, it's all I got for today, guys. Check out OnCuriaEliteFitness.com for online coaching and training programs. Sign up for my Patreon. It's patreon.com/OnCuriaElite. I got plenty of high quality exclusive content right up on there. And that's all I got, guys. Keep training hard, and I will catch you guys next time.